I'm Jeremy. Today's day 128 of reading. Today I'm reading Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Let's get started. We're on page 30. Under the bed, wrenching up the loose floorboard, and grabbed the pillowcase full of his books and birthday presents. He wriggled out, seized Hedwig's empty cage, and dashed back downstairs to his trunk. Just as Uncle Vernon burst out of the dining room, his trouser leg in bloody tatters. "Come back in here!" he bellowed. "Come back and put her right!" But a reckless rage had come over Harry. He kicked his trunk open, pulled out his wand, and pointed it at Uncle Vernon. "She deserved it," Harry said, breathing very fast. "She deserved what she got. You keep away from me." He fumbled behind him for the latch on the door. "I'm going," Harry said. "I've had enough." And in the next moment, he was out in the dark, quiet street, heaving his heavy trunk behind him, Hedwig's cage under his arm. Chapter 3. The Night Bus. Harry was several streets away before he collapsed on the low wall in Magnolia Crescent, panting from the effort of dragging his trunk. He sat quite still, anger still surging through him, listening to the frantic thumping of his heart. But after 10 minutes alone in the dark street, a new emotion overtook him. Panic. Whichever way he looked at, he had never been in a worse fix. He was stranded, quite alone, in the dark Muggle world, with absolutely nowhere to go. And the worst of it was, he had just done serious magic, which meant that he was almost certainly expelled from Hogwarts. He had broken the decree for the restriction of underage wizardry so badly, he was surprised the Ministry of Magic representatives weren't swooping down on him where he sat. Harry shivered and looked up and down Magnolia Crescent. What was going to happen to him? Would he be arrested, or would he simply be outlawed from the wizarding world? He thought of Ron and Hermione, and his heart sank even lower. Harry was sure that, criminal or not, Ron and Hermione would want to help him now. But they were both abroad, and with Hedwig gone, he had no means of contacting them. He didn't have any Muggle money, either. There was a little wizard gold in the money bag at the bottom of his trunk, but the rest of the fortune his parents had left him was stored in a vault at Gringotts Wizarding Bank in London. He'd never be able to drag his trunk all the way to London unless... He looked down at his wand, which he was still clutching in his hand. If he was already expelled, his heart was now thumping painfully fast. A bit more magic couldn't hurt. He had the invisibility cloak he had inherited from his father. What if he bewitched the trunk to make it feather light, tied it to his broomstick, covered himself in the cloak, and flew to London? Then he could get the rest of his money out of the vault and begin his life as an outcast. It was a horrible prospect, but he couldn't sit on this wall forever, or he'd just find himself trying to explain to Muggle police why he wasn't out in the dead of the night with a trunk full of spellbooks and a broomstick. Harry opened his trunk again and pushed the contents aside, looking for the invisibility cloak. But before he had found it, he was straightened up suddenly, looking around him once more. A funny prickling on the back of his neck made Harry feel like he was being watched, but the street appeared to be quite deserted, and no lights shone from any of the large square houses. He bent over his trunk again, but almost immediately stood up once more. His hand clenched on his wand. He sensed rather than heard it. Somewhere something was standing in the narrow gap between the garage and the fence behind him. Harry squinted at the black alleyway. If only it would move, then he'd know whether it was just a stray cat or something else. "Lumos," Harry muttered, and a light appeared at the end of his wand, almost dazzling him. He held it high over his head, and the pebble-dashed walls of number 2 suddenly sparkled. The garage door gleamed, and between them Harry saw, quite distinctly, the hulking outline of something very big, with wide, gleaming eyes. Harry stepped backward. His legs hit his trunk, and he tripped. His wand flew out of his hand as he flung out an arm to break his fall and landed hard in the gutter. There was a deafening bang, and Harry threw up his hands to shield his eyes against the sudden blinding light. With a yell, he rolled back onto the pavement just in time. A second later, a gigantic pair of wheels and headlights screeched to a halt exactly where Harry had just been lying. They belonged, as Harry saw when he raised his head, to a triple-decker, violently purple bus, which had appeared out of thin air. Gold lettering over the windshield spelled the Night Bus. For a split second, Harry wondered if he had knocked silly by his fall. Then a conductor in a purple uniform leapt out of the bus and began to speak loudly to the night. Welcome to Night Bus, emergency transport for the stranded witch or wizard. Just take out your wand hand, step on board, and we can take you anywhere you want to go. My name is Stan Shumpike, and I will be your conductor this eve. The conductor stopped abruptly. He had just caught sight of Harry, who was still sitting on the ground. Harry snatched up his wand again and scrambled to his feet. Close up, he saw that Stan Shumpike was only a few years older than he was, 18 or 19 at most, with large, protruding ears and quite a few pimples. What were you doing down there? Said Stan, dropping his professional manner. Fell over, said Harry. "To fall over for?" sniggered Stan. "I didn't do it on purpose," said Harry, annoyed. One of the knees in his jeans were torn, and the hand he'd thrown out to break his fall was bleeding. He suddenly remembered why he had fallen over and took quickly to stare at the alleyway between the garage and the fence. The night bus's headlamps were flooding it with light, and it was empty. "You looking at?" said Stan. "There was a big black thing," said Harry, pointing uncertainly into the gap, "like a dog, but massive." He looked around at Stan, whose mouth was slightly open. With a feeling of unease, Harry saw Stan's eyes move to the scar on Harry's forehead. "What's that on your head?" said Stan abruptly. "Nothing," said Harry quickly, flattening his hair over his scar. If the Ministry of Magic was looking for him, he didn't want to make it too easy for them. "What's your name?" Stan persisted. "Neville Longbottom," said Harry, saying the first name that came into his head. So this bus," he went on quickly, hoping to distract Stan. "Do you say it goes anywhere?" "Yup," said Stan proudly. "Anywhere you like, long as it's on land. Can't do nothing underwater." "Here," he said, looking suspicious again. "You did flag us down, didn't you? Stuck out your wand, and didn't you?" "Yes," said Harry quickly. "Listen, how much would it be to get to London?" 11 sickles, said Stan. "But for 15 you get hot chocolate, and for 15 you get hot water bottle and a toothbrush in the color of your choice." Harry rummaged once more into his trunk, extracted his money bag, and shoved some gold into Stan's hand. He and Stan then lifted his trunk, with Hedwig's cage balanced on top, up the steps of the bus. There were no seats. Instead, half a dozen brass bedsteads stuck beside the curtained windows. Candles were burning in brackets beside each bed, illuminating the wood-paneled walls. A tiny wizard in a nightcap at the rear of the bus muttered, "Not now, thanks, I'm pickling some slugs," and rolled over in his sleep. "You have this one," Stan whispered, shoving Harry's truck under the bed right behind the driver, who was sitting in an armchair in front of the steering wheel. "This is our driver, Ernie Prank. This is Neville Longbottom. Ern, Ernie Prank, an elderly wizard wearing very thick glasses, nodded to Harry, who nervously flattened his bangs again and sat down on his bed. "Take her away, Ern," said Stan, sitting down in the armchair next to Ernie. There was another tremendous bang, and the next moment Harry found himself flat on his bed, drawn back